everyone, welcome back to the channel. Happy 2024. I hope you all had a wonderful Christmas and a fantastic new year. I thought in today's video we'd kick off the new year talking about some of the best books that I read in 2023. Now I've tried to narrow it down to 5. There were a lot more than that. There were more than that I could have given, but we'll be here all day. These are in no particular order. If you read any of these, drop me a comment down below and let me know what you thought of them. So first of all, we have Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. I loved this book. If you grew up in the 80s, you will appreciate some of the references that that this book has. It may take you back to your childhood. Some of the gaming references I had to smile at because they did take me back to my own childhood. So this is a story of Sam and Sadie, who were kind of thrown together when they were kids because of health issues, and they formed a friendship that was based around gaming. They come back into each other's lives as adults, and that bond that they had through gaming really gets reignited, and they end up creating games and stuff together. They become incredibly successful. But I love that this story was based around friendship, and it didn't fall into the cliche of childhood friends, adult lovers. I loved how it described the nuances in friendships, particularly ones that are formed around you know, a trauma bond or hard times, because we cling to these people, don't we? And over time, they're not necessarily people that we would be friends with if we met them now. There's a sense of guilt, a sense of loyalty, a sense of having to still be in someone's life even if you don't necessarily want to be. And this book, I thought, navigated those ups and downs and friendships really, really well. So I thought that this was a great book and deserved all of the hype that it got. Next up, this is the last book that I read in 2023, and it's The Girls Who Disappeared by Claire Douglas. This book is a thriller. We follow the story of Olivia, who when she was 18 was driving along with her 3 friends in the car. They had an accident and she wakes up from the accident and her 3 friends are missing. It's now 20 years later. Nobody knows what happened to the girls or where they went, if they're dead, if they're alive. It takes Jenna, who is a podcaster, who comes to the area to research the case because it's the 20th anniversary. And then we start to uncover exactly what happened on that fateful night. I thought that this book, this is a dual perspective book, so we mainly, there is another thread that goes through it, but we are mainly looking from the perspective of Olivia and Jenna. I just thought that this book was super fast-paced. There were a lot of twists and turns. There were a lot of characters that kind of came in and changed things. You know, it's that type of book where you think you've got it figured out and then something happens and you go, okay, no, it's not that. And I really appreciate that in a thriller book. So this is definitely a great one if you love thrillers. Up next is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Now, I think at this point this book needs a little introduction. This was, oh, do I want to say it was my favourite? Do I want to commit to that? It was up there. It was definitely a contender for the top spot for me. I thought that this book was so intelligently written and it was so sophisticated. We have this regular average young man who joins a college and ends up in a class with a very few people, but they are all incredibly wealthy, incredibly privileged, elite level. We're talking very old money wealth, and the rules that as Normaltons have to abide by in society just do not apply to them. They're all incredibly intelligent too. So what we know is that one of the group is murdered right at the beginning of the book, and the book takes us through to find out why was this person killed. I felt that a lot of the characters were so unlikable that they became likable. Does that even make sense? Probably not. So it was definitely a book that I devoured. I wanted to know everything. I wanted to know what was happening next. Like I say, it was just beautifully written. There's Greek and there's Latin references in it. Very, very intelligent. Next we have Cersei by Madeline Miller, and again this was another book that I just fell in love with. We have Greek mythology. It follows the goddess Cersei, who was a goddess of witchcraft, but if we look at it from her perspective and we go right back to when she was young, from just how incredibly mistreated she was by every bloke that she came into contact with. And even though it's mythology and it's very, very old, I actually felt if you removed all of that and you just took Cersei as a woman, that there are a lot of women nowadays who could really relate to that story. She's mistreated, she's beaten down. It's only when she is banished to an island by herself that she really comes into her power and she starts to know her worth. It's all of the things that you want from mythology. It's competition, it's rivalry, it's heartbreak, it's love. This was the first book that I read of Madeline Miller. And then I went on to read The Song of Achilles afterwards, which I think that's the more famous of the two. That one gets a lot of praise, and that was a great book, but for me this was my favourite Madeline Miller book that I read. And last but by no means least, River Sing Me Home by Eleanor Shearer. It takes a lot for me to physically cry when I'm reading a book. This one had me in tears. This was a debut novel, I believe. We follow the story of Rachel, who is a slave on a plantation. It's the 1800s. Children that she's had during her time as a slave have been sold off and she doesn't know where they are. We're at the time period where slavery has been abolished, but of course the slave owners were not going to let these people go easily, so they came up with this idea of, well, you're no longer a slave, but now you're an apprentice, so you have to stay with us for another 7 years. Essentially, was just slavery in a different jacket, wasn't it? So Rachel makes the decision to run away, and it's very tense. And then she embarks on this journey to find all of her children, some with happy endings, some with not happy endings. This book was an emotional roller coaster. I think when I talked about this book in one of the videos that I made last year, I said this then, but all I kept thinking when I was reading this is this would make such a fantastic film, and I really hope that somebody picks up the rights to this and turns it into a film, because it's set against the backdrop of the Caribbean. We're going on different islands. It's an emotional one. I think it's such an important story that needs to be told and needs to be heard by more people. Definitely, highly recommend River Sing Me Home. Those were just a few of the books that I personally fell in love with in 2023. If you are new here and you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button, stick around. I'm very excited to share with you new books for 2024. In fact, the one that I've just started reading is The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell. So I'm literally like one chapter into this so far, but I'm very excited to read it. We are back in the 1500s in Italy. And this one was shortlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction, Sunday Times and New York Times bestseller, Guardian Book of the Year, Reese's Book Club pick. It tells the story of a young woman, 16, already married. Remember, this is the 1500s in Italy. She gets taken to this kind of remote house by her husband, and she's thinking, hang on a minute, I'm a duchess. Like, this is not, where are all the servants? Where's everybody looking after her? You know, there's a hustle and bustle that comes from a house of that caliber. And she realizes, in the first chapter, she realizes that her husband is there to murder her. So I'm expecting a lot of twists and turns, a lot of betrayal, everything you'd expect from 16th century Italy. So I will keep you guys updated once I have finished that. If you've made it this far, well done. Thank you so much. Give this video a thumbs up because it really does help to try and grow the channel, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.